In this video, we're looking at chainsaw chains, bars, and accessories for sawmilling. And I share my most valuable tips that I've picked up over the 7 years of doing this. I will, however, approach this video from the beginner's point of view, as these topics was something I struggled a bit to learn about when I first got into sawmilling. Now I hope to save you all that trouble. And because this is just related to sawmilling, I will only cover some types of bars and chains. And actually, there are only two different types that I want to cover here. So the chainsaw bar and chain go together, of course. Luckily, both the bar and the chain will be designated by the pitch of the chain. The small one on the right takes a 3/8 lopro chain, and the other one takes a 0.404 chain. Lopro is short for low profile. And actually, let's ignore that for now and just focus on the numbers. The number 3/8 is referring to the pitch of the chain. And the pitch is defined by the distance between the center of 3 rivets and then divided by 2. Since the measurement ends up being 3/8 of an inch, that's why we call it 3/8 chain. And the other chain measures 0.404 inches. There's one other number that you also need to pay close attention to, and that is the gauge. This refers to the thickness of the drive links. And here's where it can get a little bit confusing, because the 3/8 chain can have different gauges. So you can have the same 063 gauge just as the 404 chain, but you can also find the 3/8 chain in 050 gauge. And that is what's called lopro, because overall it is a little bit thinner. The difference in thickness of these bars is 1 millimeter. But once you get a chain on there, the actual difference in the kerf is 2 millimeters. This seems like a small difference, but the kerf made by the lopro is actually 25% smaller than the 404 chain. Using the same power head, the lopro will cut faster. So this is the Stihl MS661. It is really a marvel of engineering. It is only about 7 to 7.5 horsepower. If you imagine this tiny chainsaw in comparison to a large electric motor that powers a sawmill, there's going to be the issue of power. A chainsaw is not really that powerful. So the way we get around that is we use a special type of chain. And while we're still on the topic of chains, you will hear the term skip chain being used a lot. And there are many variations of skip chain, but essentially a skip chain refers to a chain that has added space between the cutting teeth. How big of a space you need really depends on the size of the timber you're cutting. What you need to understand is the correlation of how wide the cut is and how many teeth are in the cut. The hyper skip chain that I normally use has a massive space between the cutters compared to normal chain. And indeed, this works really well for cutting very large logs. This is a standard chainsaw chain. I've actually gone ahead and modified this now that I see it. So I made my own skip chain out of this. So what do you do when you can't find the right type of skip chain that suits your needs? Can we make our own? And the answer to that is yes. And I've been making my own for years. This is because the 3/8 lopro chain is not available in skip form. So what I do is I just order regular ripping chain. I simply mark the cutters with a Sharpie that I want to remove. And then I put my angle grinder in the vise and gently grind away the cutters. And I hate to be a safety Sally, but obviously there's an element of danger here, and I'll just leave it at that. I grind away the entire cutting tooth, all the way down to the top of the drive link. Once you've turned a chain into a skip chain, it should only be used for sawmilling. Never should an aggressive skip pattern like this be used for normal handheld chainsaw use, since the risk of kickback would be extremely high. Chains, sprockets, and guide bars are all consumables. While you can't do anything to maintain a sprocket, once they've accumulated enough wear, it is time to replace them. But the chain and the bar can and should be maintained. When you get the chance, you should remove all the goo and sawdust from the groove of the bar. There are special tools for this, and they are very inexpensive. You will also wear down the bar with use. Proper lubrication will prevent this to some extent, but as it wears, you need to dress the bar by using a special file. And this should be done when you start to notice a lip on your rail. And eventually the bar will wear down completely, and when the groove of the bar is too shallow for the drive link of the chain to fit, well, that's when the bar is ready for retirement. This is the longest lopro bar that I have. And the way I've always gone about this is I've tried and used the lopro bar for as much as I can until the timber is too big to use this chainsaw bar, then I will use the thicker, the longer ones. For the first year or so that I had this with electric motors, I used to run 2 bars at the same time. So that was really quick and efficient, very productive. Each pass with the sawmill would give me 2 slabs. But what I found was that if the log was very big, I would just keep snapping the drive belts. They would just break. I went through, I don't know how many drive belts, and they were like $30 each. So I just didn't want to deal with that. Double-ended bars are quite interesting. Instead of having a nose sprocket, you are able to mount 2 chainsaws to power 1 chain. This is the most powerful setup for your sawmill and will allow you to cut the biggest logs out there. You can run a double-ended bar with just 1 power head as well. But to do this, you either need to use the Granberg helper handle or this gadget here that is made by Logosol. I have tried both and I'm not too impressed by the helper handle. Although it does work, I find that the counterpart from Logosol is way better built. And it also has a built-in oil pump that runs off the sprocket. So as long as the chain is turning, it is feeding oil into the other end of the bar, which if you have a really long bar, might not see too much oil being fed from the chainsaw end. So all you need is some kind of a tank of bar oil. You just plug it in here, and as soon as the chain starts to spin, the little pump here will feed bar oil to the bar. Now these cost a little bit more than the helper handle, but my reasoning with these are that they are much more reliable and robust. And since you spend quite a bit of money on a double-ended bar anyway, you want them to last. And having a reliable way to feed some extra oil in there is a great feature. All the previous stuff I talked about are all important to achieve good performance from a sawmill, but the number one thing that will affect performance is, of course, having a sharp chain. And in the beginning, it may be difficult to distinguish from an okay sharp chain and one that's slightly dull. If you find yourself pushing more than usual, seesawing, or even forcing the saw through the cut, then you are only putting excess wear on the bar. When you're out in the field, bring files. And keep in mind that these wear out pretty quick as well. So keeping fresh files in stock is important. And for your big sharpening needs, a chain grinder is a great investment. And you need the right size file or wheel for your specific chain. With the grinder, you might need to profile the wheel as well to give you the right profile of the grind. This is done using a small dressing stone. As we talk about power output, I mentioned that a chainsaw is not really that powerful, and of course it's powerful, but it's all into context of what you're doing. So if you're sawmilling these giant logs, the chainsaw is going to be underpowered. A lot of guys go around that issue by using 2 chainsaws and a double-ended bar. And what you can do to increase your performance even further than that. So what I've done, I have 20 horsepower combined here, electric powered as well. So there's a lot of torque already in this setup. And how fast you cut something is all a combination of different factors. So you have your feed rate, that is how quickly you feed the chainsaw bar through the wood. And then you also have your chain speed. And the relation between those two, the power is going to decide how well these 2 factors are going to work together. Sharpness is another factor, of course, but let's not talk about that right now, because what I want to mention is the chain speed. So with a standard 7-pin sprocket, you will get approximately 24 meters per second of the chain travel speed. And since I already have 20 horsepower here, I'm not really in the need of more torque. So instead what I want to do is I want to increase the chain speed. So if you think about it, you have a set amount of cutters, and the more times per second they will travel through the wood and take a bite, then the faster you will cut. So it's not all about torque, it's about chain speed as well. So using a 8-pin sprocket, which is what I put on both of these motors here, I can get the chain speed up to 27 meters per second. So that's another way to increase your cut speed. If you have the power, you can sacrifice a little bit of torque and make it up by having a faster chain. Chainsaw bars, when they're long like this, they do flex a little bit. So if you got them clamped as close as you can to the end, you can expect to have a little bit of a dip in the middle. But if you're milling with the Granberg, it's very easy to remedy that. What you do is you loosen up the bar clamp that is on the nose end of the bar, and you can take the post, the upright, and pull it or push it, and you can put a straight edge on here, and you'll see it will actually bend it flat. So that's a great tip to get your chainsaw bar to be flat. But if you're building a sawmill, however, that can be a little bit more tricky. And what I did was I built this thing here that clamps onto the chainsaw bar, and it sort of mimics what the Granberg Alaskan does. So it has two posts, and these posts are able to tilt back and forth like this with the use of a little screw there. So that way I'm able to take most of the sag out of the bar. I hope you found some useful info in this video. If you think I missed something, please let me know in the comments and I'll try and respond. Also, if you're a sawyer yourself and have some tips and tricks that you want others to know, I invite you to put your input in the comments as well. If you liked the video and want to support my channel, go ahead and leave a thumbs up. And thank you for watching, and I hope to see you on the next video.